They sabotaged her, stole her code, and buried her career until the day she walked away, not in defeat, but as the CEO of the company that would replace them all. This isn't just revenge. This is a reckoning. Megan Riley adjusted the collar of her blazer in the elevator mirror, her reflection unbothered yet quietly burning. The 36th floor dinged open, and she stepped out into the polished halls of Vertex Solutions, her heels tapping a rhythm of masked resolve. She'd been with the company for nearly 5 years now. Her role, senior systems architect. Her contribution, foundational. Her recognition, practically non-existent. To everyone else, she was competent, helpful, diligent, but never the star. Never the one to present. Never the name on the slide. Today would change that. Weeks ago, Megan had identified a core inefficiency in Blackstone's digital infrastructure, a client Vertex had been courting for months. Everyone from executives to mid-level managers had weighed in, yet their strategy to land the contract remained surface level, focused more on optics than substance. So Megan had stayed late, run simulations, coded models, and drafted what she knew was the real answer. She hadn't volunteered for her work. Not immediately. Not this time. Because she knew what would happen. Derek, her manager and the eternal corporate politician, would take her plan, add his name to it, and present it as his own. Julia, another senior architect with an eye on leadership, would nod and smile and find a way to reframe Megan's data into a broader team contribution. Then they'd all go to the client, pitch it, and no one would remember her name. Instead, Megan waited. She perfected the technical roadmap. Then, the day before the big meeting, when panic set in over their incomplete model, she volunteered a potential solution. Reluctantly, oh so reluctantly, they agreed to try it. The results stunned everyone. So much so that Richard Hayes, Vertex's COO, demanded a complete presentation for Blackstone, with Megan's code embedded. Yet when the first draft of the deck arrived in her inbox, her algorithm was tucked away in the appendix. Her name? Omitted. That morning, Megan printed her slides, a separate set, just in case. The meeting room was all glass and nerves. Sarah Levinson, Blackstone's head of infrastructure, sat with arms crossed, skeptical but intrigued. Megan recognized that. Look, Sarah wasn't here for fluff. She was here for answers. Derek began the presentation with the usual flair. Julia followed with market buzzwords and feature summaries. Megan watched Sarah's expression flatten. Then came the Q&A. Sarah leaned forward. You're proposing a modular solution. What load balancing method are you using to manage resource spikes? Derek blinked. Julia flipped a page. Megan glanced at the original slide deck. Nothing. Silence stretched. Megan stood. We're using adaptive load distribution based on predictive analytics, derived from real-time behavior modeling. Sarah turned to her. And the algorithm behind that? Megan walked to the screen and switched the display. Her slides appeared. Here. I built a predictive loop using historical transaction data, filtered through a deep learning module. It adjusts server allocation dynamically. Sarah's eyes lit up with the glint of professional interest. You built this? Yes. For the rest of the meeting, Megan led the conversation. By the time it ended, Sarah shook her hand with purpose. We'll be in touch. Impressive work. Derek cornered her as soon as Sarah left. What the hell was that, Megan? You blindsided us. I saved the meeting, she replied calmly. You hijacked it. I did what needed to be done, Julia chimed in, faux concern painted on. You could have coordinated with us, Megan. That was unprofessional. Was it? Or was it necessary? Because if I had coordinated the way we usually do, none of my work would have been mentioned. Richard stepped in then, having watched silently from the edge. My office, now. She sat across from him, heart hammering, though she kept her posture composed. You deliberately kept your version of the slides hidden. That's manipulation, he said. That's survival. He studied her, then tapped a pen on the table. You think you're the only person being overlooked here? I think I'm the only one tired of it. A pause. You know what? He said. You'll lead the implementation. If Blackstone signs, you're reporting directly to me. Agreed. But one slip, Megan. Then I'm gone. Understood. The next week blurred into 14-hour workdays. Blackstone signed the proposal. Sarah requested Megan as the point of contact. Julia tried to bury the hatchet, but Megan politely declined coffee. Raj, from the dev team, appeared with quiet support. That algorithm? Nice move. They've been trying to patch that. For months. Need help building out the deployment flow? Yes, she said, grateful. They stayed late that night and the next, until they'd built a framework stronger than anything Vertex had ever delivered. At home, Megan sat by her window with a glass of wine. She'd printed Sarah's email. Impressed, Megan. We want you formally designated as our lead, and we'd like the option to retain you directly if necessary. Talk soon. Megan smiled. This was just the beginning. The Monday after the Blackstone presentation began as quietly as any other. But everything felt different. Megan Riley walked into Vertex's sleek glass building wearing a calm expression and a steel spine. The gossip had already started. Whispers in the hallways, passive glances during meetings, and emails sent accidentally to the wrong recipients. Word traveled faster than data in a fiber line. Megan had pulled something off. What exactly? People weren't sure. But it made some nervous, and it made others, especially those like her, quietly proud. As she settled into her cubicle, Megan checked her calendar. No immediate meeting invitations, no surprise, performance reviews. But she wasn't naive. Something was coming. She'd taken a calculated risk by removing the core algorithm from the original Blackstone slide deck, and that move had forced recognition. The email from Richard landed at 10:34 a.m. Subject: postmortem discussion. Blackstone when, 2 p.m. where, 32nd floor, Executive Conference, REM. A. Attendees: Richard Grayson, Derrick Hale, Julia Kim, Vanessa Singh, Megan Riley. Megan stared at it for a moment, then hit accept. Whatever came next, she was ready. The executive floor had always been a place Megan entered cautiously, summoned but rarely empowered. But today, as she walked into the room, she didn't feel like a visitor. She felt like someone who finally belonged. Richard sat at the head of the long walnut table, stone-faced. Derrick was already mid-lecture when she arrived. She intentionally excluded the algorithm from the slide deck. Richard, that's not just an oversight, that's sabotage. Megan took a seat without flinching. It wasn't sabotage, it was strategy. Julia shifted uncomfortably in her chair and Vanessa looked down at her notepad, avoiding eye contact. Megan waited, letting the tension breathe. Then she spoke. I found the flaw in Blackstone's integration model. I developed the solution. I wrote the implementation framework. And I saved that presentation when the questions turned technical. None of that happened by accident. Richard leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Why didn't you include the algorithm in the slides, Megan? He asked finally. The room fell silent. Because if I had, she said calmly, you'd never have known what happened in that room. And I needed leverage. Derrick scoffed. You're admitting manipulation in front of the executive team. That's enough grounds for termination. Richard raised a hand. Let her finish. Megan met Richard's eyes. For months, I've sat in meetings while others took credit for my work. I've been asked to revise reports I wrote, only to watch them being presented under someone else's name. I've had my questions ignored, my code reviewed without feedback, and my insights filtered through managers who couldn't explain them. I didn't hide the algorithm to harm anyone. I did it so that, just once, I wouldn't be invisible. Vanessa looked up, biting her lip. Richard tapped his pen against the table. Vanessa, any word from Blackstone? She nodded. Yes. Sarah Levinson sent an email about an hour ago. She was particularly impressed with Megan's technical breakdown. She's requested that Megan be the lead contact for implementation going forward. Derrick's face flushed red. Megan, Richard said slowly, can you deliver on what you promised? Without question, Richard paused. Then here's what we're going to do. You'll lead Blackstone's implementation. You'll report directly to me, not through Derrick. Derrick stood, his jaw tight. This is unacceptable. She's untrustworthy. Enough, Richard cut in. We'll discuss this later. Megan, stay. Everyone else, out. As the others filed out, Derrick shot Megan a look that was half fury, half disbelief. She met it with silence. The door clicked shut. Richard folded his hands. That was a dangerous move. It wasn't a game to me, Megan replied. It was my career. You understand it raised concerns. So does systematic exclusion. So does giving promotions to the people who shout the loudest instead of the ones who deliver. A ghost of a smile flickered across Richard's face. You're not backing down. No, I'm not. He nodded, slowly. Then here's the deal. You led the Blackstone rollout, deliver results, and if you do, we'll revisit your role here. Megan's gaze didn't waver. Understood. One more thing, Richard said. The algorithm, is it documented now? It will be by tomorrow. Good. Don't make that play again. No need. Once is enough, if people are paying attention. Over the next 2 weeks, Megan felt the chill of isolation. Derrick avoided her entirely. Julia brought her coffee and a nervous apology, to which Megan replied, "Not hard enough." Julia didn't argue. She knew. Only Raj from Dev treated her like nothing had changed. About time someone called their bluff, he said, leaning on her desk. Need help with the Blackstone specs? He became her shadow. Together, they rebuilt the architecture documentation, scheduled technical briefings, and created a seamless rollout timeline. Megan no longer played defense, she owned the court. 1 week later, Sarah Levinson requested a private video call. When the camera connected, Sarah smiled. Ms. Riley, we've reviewed the supplemental materials. Impressive work. Thank you. Please, call me Megan. Sarah nodded. Then I'll be direct. We're ready to move forward. But we have conditions. Megan straightened. I'm listening. 1, you're to be named project lead in the contract itself, not just internally. 2, we want quarterly reviews with you. And 3, if we're dissatisfied with Vertex's support around your solution, we reserve the right to contract you independently. The last part hit like a gut punch. Take me with them? Sarah must have seen her surprise. Unusual? Maybe. But so is finding someone who understands our infrastructure as you do. When the call ended, Megan stared at her screen for a full minute. Then she drafted a message to Richard. Subject, Blackstone's conditions. Summary, please find. Attach the 3 contractual requirements outlined by Ms. Levinson. Your guidance is requested. Megan, his response came 30 minutes later. My office, 3:12 p.m. Richard wasn't alone. Marcia Winters, head of legal, sat beside him. These terms are highly irregular, Marcia began. This clause, allowing them to poach you, creates a serious conflict. For whom? Megan asked. Richard raised a brow. Explain. Is the risk that I might leave or that others might start asking who's doing the work here? Marcia tensed. That's not the point. It's exactly the point, Megan said. Blackstone values direct access to the person who solved their issue. They're willing to protect that access contractually. Are you? The room fell silent. Vertex values all employees, Richard said. Then prove it. What followed was a 2-hour roller coaster of contract reviews, performance, terms, and internal structure arguments. Megan held her ground. In the end, they agreed. Megan would be named project lead in the client-facing contract. She would be promoted to technical director, reporting to Richard. She would receive a percentage of the Blackstone contract value as a bonus. This sets a dangerous precedent, Marcia warned. It sets the right one, Richard replied, glancing at Megan. We recognize those who create value. The next Monday, Richard stood before the entire company. I'm proud to announce that Vertex has secured an $8.2 million contract with Blackstone Industries, thanks in large part to the leadership and innovation of Megan Riley, now our new technical director. Megan stood in the back, watching heads turn toward her. Whispers buzzed. Some were shocked, some impressed. A few scowled. After the meeting, Derrick approached her. Congratulations, he muttered, his voice cold. Quite the coup. It wasn't a coup, Megan replied. It was a correction. Don't get comfortable, he hissed. This company has a long memory. So do I, she said, smiling. And unlike some people, I document everything. His face twitched. Oh, and my first act as technical director? She added. Auditing project credit records. Derek paled. This isn't over. You're right, Megan said. It's just beginning. It had only been 3 weeks since Megan Riley stood in front of Vertex's executive team and made history, not by revolutionizing software, but by demanding to be seen. Her promotion had made headlines in internal emails, corporate newsletters, and whispered Slack threads. Some hailed her a trailblazer. Others quietly called her lucky. Megan knew better. Luck didn't survive the trenches of corporate sabotage. Her new office, still modest but with a door, bore her nameplate now. Megan Riley, Technical Director, Innovation and Client Integration. But power came with a cost. On her first Monday in the new role, she received a cryptic message from Raj, now her informal deputy. Subject: heads up. Message: word is Derek's been looping in someone from compliance on your Blackstone timelines. Not sure why, but it smells off. Stay sharp. Megan didn't respond immediately. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. They weren't done with her yet. She called a meeting with the key engineers who had supported her during the Blackstone prototype phase, including Raj, Lisa Tran from QA, and Jamal Bryant. From DevOps, I need a squad I can trust, she said plainly. Jamal raised a brow. That sounds like something you say when trust's already been broken. It has, and it will be again, Megan replied. But if we stay one step ahead of the chaos, we can insulate ourselves and the project. Lisa folded her arms. Insulate from who? Megan stared at her screen, then turned it around. Displayed was a forwarded email chain, one that had accidentally been sent to her by an intern who had been CC'd instead of BCC'd. Derek Hale. Ensure that any discrepancy, even trivial, in Blackstone's implementation is flagged directly to internal audit. Use due diligence language. No need to loop in Megan until we've reviewed ourselves. Jamal muttered, That rat bastard. Why is he even still here? Lisa asked. Because if he gets fired now, it looks like retaliation, Megan replied. They'll wait, or they think he'll take himself out trying. Megan circled a line on the printout in red Sharpie. If anything goes wrong, the blame must land where it started, her. Then we make sure nothing goes wrong, she said, her voice ice. Sarah Levinson arrived 2 weeks later for a surprise on-site inspection. Her visit was labeled routine review, but everyone knew it was more than that. Megan met her in the executive lounge, joined by Richard. Sarah didn't bother with pleasantries. We've received an anonymous tip alleging delays, misfiled documentation, and this is the phrasing, a lack of technical leadership stability. Richard looked at Megan, then at Sarah. We're not aware of any such issues. Megan didn't flinch. They're false, but let's find out where they came. From, Sarah folded her arms. Already did. The metadata of the message points to someone using a VPN from this building, logged in under a temporary employee account. Raj had prepared her for this. We've isolated that account, Megan said, and we've traced access logs. Whoever submitted that tip used files last accessed in the compliance directory, where only 2 people outside the executive team have read-write access. Richard narrowed his eyes. Who? Megan pulled a folder from her briefcase and laid it flat. Derek Hale, and a contractor named Junaid Khan hired 2 months ago under Derek's budget. Richard flipped through the folder. Sarah nodded slowly. Well, this is revealing. I take it Blackstone still wants to proceed with the Phase 2 rollout? Megan asked. Sarah smiled. Not just proceed, we want to fast-track it. Richard exhaled. Good news. And the whistleblower report? Sarah closed the folder. Consider it shredded. That night, Megan stayed late. Her team had cleared the first module release. Blackstone had signed the Phase 2 contract. Everything. Should have felt like a victory, but a Slack ping pulled her out of the high. Raj, need to talk. Come to the 14th floor. Bring your badge. Confused, she took the elevator down to the old server room they'd once used as a temporary war room. During the pre-Blackstone crunch, she found Raj pacing. What's going on? She asked. He handed her a USB drive. Junaid's account accessed more than just compliance folders. It pulled your personal HR file, your contract, even your non-compete. Megan's blood ran cold. Why? Raj hesitated. Because someone's preparing to file a formal conflict of interest report, claiming that your contract with Blackstone gives you more loyalty to them than to Vertex. Her jaw clenched. That's absurd. The contract was signed off by legal. No, but if they can frame it like you're double dipping, they can discredit you. She stared at the drive in her palm. Who? Raj hesitated again. Megan. It wasn't Derek. What? It was Vanessa Singh. She's been forwarding internal emails to an anonymous Proton Mail address. I checked the headers twice. Megan sat down. Hard. She was in that room. She backed me. She also stood to lose a promotion when you leapfrogged over her. The sting cut deep. She had trusted Vanessa, believed she was an ally. Megan stood slowly. Then I'll deal with her, quietly, but effectively. The next morning, Megan requested a one-on-one meeting with Richard. I need authority to investigate a potential internal data breach. Richard blinked. On what grounds? I believe confidential internal contracts and files are being shared externally under a false whistleblower claim. I have logs, access reports, and the person responsible is someone you trust. Richard studied her face. You're sure? Yes. I need access to the activity logs from Vanessa's workstation. After a pause, Richard said, I'll grant it, but only because I trust you. 3 days later, she had the proof. Vanessa had accessed confidential strategy documents and emailed them to a private domain registered to Grayson and Patel Consulting, a competitor that had recently submitted a bid against Vertex for a government IT contract. It wasn't about revenge. It was espionage. Megan brought the evidence to Richard. When she finished her explanation, he looked stunned. We brought her up through the leadership track. She brought Vertex down in her mind the moment she lost control of the narrative. Megan said, but now we control it. Richard tapped the table slowly. I'll handle this with legal. In a private company-wide address, Richard announced the termination of Vanessa Singh, citing breach of contract and confidential data. Handling. He didn't mention Megan, but everyone knew. Whispers turned to applause behind closed doors. Megan wasn't just the director who secured the biggest contract in Vertex's history. She was the one who cleaned house. That evening, Megan returned to her apartment, exhausted but at peace. She poured herself a glass of red wine and stood by her window watching the city pulse below. Her phone buzzed. Sarah Levinson. Just heard. Strong move. Also, any interest in a CTO role? We'll be posting one soon. Megan stared at the message. She had power now. Influence. Recognition. Even revenge. But more than all of that, she had options. And options meant freedom. The day after Megan received Sarah Levinson's message, she sat alone in her office rereading it. Any interest in a CTO role? We'll be posting one soon. A part of her was thrilled. The same part that had clawed through every microaggression, every "you're too young," every stolen idea, and every denied promotion. But another part, the one she hadn't. Let's speak for years, whispered. Is this what you want or what you fought for out of necessity? She minimized the message and opened a blank document. Title: Things I Want Without Needing to Win. Time to build something of my own. A team where trust isn't a gamble. A company culture that doesn't need a crisis to do the right thing. To choose, not survive. Megan closed her laptop. It was time for answers, from herself and from the people still. Holding pieces of her future, she requested a private sit-down with Richard. They met in the executive conference room. No assistants, no distractions. You know why I'm here, Megan said. Richard gave a weary nod. Blackstone's offer? They've formally asked me to interview for the CTO role. He didn't flinch, but his posture shifted. And are you planning to? She folded her hands. I'm considering 3 things. What Blackstone can give me. What Vertex hasn't. And whether I owe this place another war just to make progress. He sighed. I want you to stay. I'll be honest. Your leadership has salvaged, more than our relationship with Blackstone. It's salvaged morale, culture. Us. But I also know we used you as a shield, and you fought battles I should have fought first. It was the first time Richard ever admitted fault. That mattered. I'm not asking for flattery, she said. I'm asking, what do I stay for? Richard reached into his folder and slid a confidential envelope across the table. VP of Engineering. Full decision-making autonomy. You choose your budget, build your team, and approve hiring. Report only to me. The board already signed off. Megan's eyebrows raised. That's not just retention, she said. That's a reinvention. Richard nodded. You've earned it. But before she could decide, something unexpected shattered the quiet. 3 days later, a 0-day vulnerability was detected, not in the Blackstone integration, but in Vertex's core financial software. It had been dormant for years, overlooked, buried in legacy code. If exploited, it could leak confidential payroll, contractor payments, even vendor pricing models. Megan didn't hesitate. She summoned her team, the loyal few, and locked down the breach protocol. Raj, Lisa, and Jamal worked side by side with her for 36 hours straight. The twist? The patch that finally worked wasn't hers. It was written by Taylor King, the same intern Megan had quietly mentored after discovering he'd been blacklisted by Vanessa for asking too many questions. Taylor had caught the vulnerability by reverse engineering a decompiled snippet during an audit, the kind of thing most engineers skipped, when he submitted his patch to Megan with a simple Slack message. I think this closes it. She didn't second guess. She tested it. It worked. And she did something no one had done for her when she started. She pulled Taylor in front of the executive team. This is the engineer who saved us today, she said. Don't forget his name. A week later, Blackstone flew her to New York. They wanted to meet over dinner. Final discussions, not interviews. Sarah Levinson met her at a quiet bistro near the Hudson. You've done something rare, Sarah said over wine. Not just survived, but built power from chaos. I didn't want power, Megan replied. I wanted peace, but they made me choose. Sarah smiled. You'd make a hell of a CTO. The job's yours. Megan twirled her fork. But what? About the culture? What do you mean? I'm not moving from one war zone to another. I won't be the exception again. I want to build something new. Or at least fix something broken. And if I can't, then don't come, Sarah said simply. Start something. You've already proven you can. Megan stared at the skyline beyond the window. It had never occurred to her that she could say no to both. She returned to Vertex the next day. She called Richard into her office. Thank you for the offer, she said. And the trust. He blinked. But I'm leaving, Richard exhaled. To Blackstone? No, he tilted his head. Then, where? Megan smiled. To build the place we keep pretending exists. She had already filed for her LLC, already secured 2 angel investors who had quietly been watching her navigate chaos with surgical precision. And Blackstone had agreed to become her first client, not her employer. Her company would be called Signal North, a symbol of direction, of clarity, leading in storms. Signal North launched quietly but swiftly. Taylor King joined as the first full-time hire. Raj came aboard as CTO. Lisa and Jamal consulted part-time during the transition. Their mission? To build secure, ethical, and inclusive enterprise software without the toxicity of legacy politics. They didn't just write code. They rewrote the rules. On the 6-month mark, Megan stood in a sunlit, loft-turned office, watching her small team debug a release. An intern handed her coffee and asked, "Weren't you scared of leaving a company like Vertex?" She smiled. I was terrified. But staying scared me more. And for the first time in her career, she wasn't surviving. She was leading.